Welcome to the Catholic Dadcast by Rich Pintang, where we break down all things dad from a Catholic perspective. Now more than ever, we need dads to step up their game. Gentlemen, buckle up and get ready for battle. Welcome to the Catholic Dadcast. My name is Rich Pintang, your host and founder, broadcasting from sunny California. And today's episode is going to bring some truth bombs to you. And you might want to step back because you're probably going to get a lot of heat because we're coming to you straight from the heart in the battle. And we're talking about men of faith in the ProLife movement and how we desperately need men to step up and not be passive because we're facing these atrocities at this time. And we bring to you today my brother in Christ, who is a conservative Cradle Catholic, born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, father of 8. You got it. Father of 8 and host of the Fides podcast. Welcome to the show, Mr. Jerry Cirino Jr. Welcome, brother.
Hey, Rich. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Hey, I tell you, man, I didn't get to tell you offline, but I'm glad that we were able to get together because obviously with you being in the Midwest and me being here on the West Coast and business and everything else that goes on, the first time around, true story. And I think we were going back and forth on text message, but we ended up having my son being sick. And of course, school protocol is everyone gets tested. So we take the family over to the clinic. We get COVID tested and we're all negative. What's the downside? The downside is, having a Q-tip up my nose caused an allergic reaction for, 2 days. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Another effect of COVID, right?
Yeah. Like how humbling, and I'm not big on allergy medicine, but I mean, I was a grumpy guy. And,
I'm sure.
and like I told you, I was waving the white flag because I had no choice. I didn't want to be on the air with Kleenex in my, in my nose. So
Understand.
thanks for hanging in there with me, man.
Absolutely. I'm glad we got the chance to talk. You have a great show. You had my sister on your program,
Yeah.
and so I'm glad she was able to get on, and really excited to talk with you.
Yeah. Lisa's content really was important for those that were looking for some kind of structure and information on when there's a newborn and that the dynamics of how a household can kind of overcome some of those challenges just by being aware. And she was just a wealth of knowledge. And even to you, Jerry, with with you having the Fides podcast, um, I mean, if you take us back, for example, to kind of your upbringing, obviously you got a family of you know. 8 children, and that's a handful in itself. But I really want to dig into, being a cradle Catholic and how that really has allowed you that to be the foundation of how you, hold yourself today as a man.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, so you mentioned I have 8, so I'm the second oldest of 9. So my parents have beat us, and they're going to win that one out ultimately. And Lisa is my youngest sister, so she was born when I was 19 years old. I was in college. My older sister was 20, so there's a 20-year gap, and now she has two little kids, and is doing great stuff. Yeah. So our family was a very, we would call ourselves, I suppose, devout Catholics. We as kids, we went along with what our parents did. We went to church. My parents were, what was considered, we'd call them strict, but they really weren't strict. They were just doing what's appropriate, right? And
Mm.
um, and but ultimately I think that with our faith and with what our parents did, because we got into trouble and normal things that kids did. I would skip church when I was older, and teenager and the like, and you kind of drift and that kind of thing. But I remember my oldest sister said once that our parents, the best thing they did was they instilled a conscience in us, right? So
Yes. Yes,
if
sir.
we did something wrong, and we did plenty, we knew it, right? We knew that it was wrong, and we were able to accept that. And then, as of course you get older, you mature and you understand your errors, and you also understand the importance of your faith in your life, because life is not always very easy. And I'm grateful for my parents and then their parents, who as a matter of fact, my on my mother's side, my great grandmother was Jewish, and
Mm.
she married a Catholic and ultimately was disowned, and then she converted, and ultimately, because of her and my great grandfather, my mom and her family were Catholic. So it took one person making a choice, and obviously we're all grateful.
Yeah, no doubt. And I look at it as the fact that yes, it seemed like it was painful and to be disciplined and to go to mass and understand the importance of saints and confession, and but at the same time, where would I be without it? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's and it's even more important to know that, like, thank goodness my mom and dad, are still here with us, and they happen to be out here in the California area visiting.
Hmm.
But I just love kind of reflecting on that, the fact that that was passed down. And if you're probably like me, Jerry, when it's all said and done, when my kids are talking about me or us and our family,
Yeah.
by far they would say he was uncompromising with what the Catholic Church teaches us, and abiding by you know what God has been telling us, through history. So
Yep.
it's amazing to think about. And that's and I would think that a lot of that, because we see society the way it is, I would have to believe that that's one of the reasons why you felt like the podcast was an outlet for you,
Hmm.
to fight the evil that we see.
Yeah, it's I would have never, first of all, podcasts have been around for a while, but they've slowly but surely started becoming extremely popular, as you know. And I never imagined it. I ultimately became, closer to my faith, and ultimately what you would consider politically conservative, right? As I was kind of getting my older years, my last couple of years in college, and then after that, and 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 I just started, you start experiencing life, and you start seeing, the importance of faith, the importance of responsibility and accountability, of proper behavior. The things that my parents would say, don't do this, or this is not the right way to live. At the time, you looked at it as a restriction.
Hmm.
What you come to see is that it is, no, that's how you live a better life, and how you have a better family, right? I mean, if I behave the way I should behave, I'm going to have a better marriage, right?
Hmm.
So, but ultimately, I became a huge fan of Rush Limbaugh, and I traveled for my job throughout my whole life, really, and I listened to him. And he's not Catholic, but he a lot of times sounded it.
Hmm.
And but he would, even just on the political issues, I just became, as I became a father, and that responsibility on your shoulders, the things that go on in this world are much more important than when I was much younger, right? And and I just I just felt passionate about the amount of lies, the evil that's out there. We were talking earlier about, this is a fight. I mean, using the words fight is the appropriate word. what we're fighting against. And again, as a father, as you know, I want a good world for my kids. And I see what the left in this country is doing and has done and is continuing to do. It just compelled me to say, you know what, I'm going to start a podcast. And I looked into it and researched it and started it. And I'm a couple episodes away from recording my 100th episode.
Praise
And
God.
I'm having so much fun with it. I've met unbelievable people. The focus is on the life issue, on pro-life. I would say I've had more topics or more guests in that area, because I think that is the most important issue we face, and it encompasses so many things.
Yeah, and I applaud you for that, for having that courage, because really, a lot of times I feel like those on the pro-choice side, that they like to use that play of words like, "Oh, you're taking away my choice,"
Mm-hmm.
and I've had this conversation with young adults, and at the same time I've also seen 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds who really understand why we are pro-life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just sad to see. I think it's sad to see, but at the same time, it's not that's what they want. They want to discourage us, and as ugly as it gets, um it's so when you see it through the eyes of Jesus, you can really see how deceptive it is and how clever the devil likes to
Mm-hmm.
work. And so I think I'm thinking back to your recording with Alveda King, who's at the forefront with Frank
She is,
Pavone,
yeah.
right? And those are, we just need more people like that. But when you're having those conversations with them, um, I assume that it starts to spark even more, more motivation to continue that fight and bring people on to speak against the atrocities of abortion.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's as Father Pavone said on my show, and he said it, I'm sure, a million times, it is the preeminent issue. I mean, we could disagree on taxes, we could disagree on the size of government, we could disagree on how healthcare and things like that, and I have my opinions on all those issues,
Sure.
but there's nothing that's even remotely close to the issue of abortion. I mean, the left, you would mention Satan, you would mention, evil, the left in this country, everything is a lie. And on every issue, every single issue, it is painted in a false way. They lie, they cover up. If you look at the issue of abortion, when we look at the, what we talked about, fighting, this is a battle. The left lied about abortion. Just a clump of cells. It's nothing. It's just a blob of nothing. Many years ago, and they convinced people to say, okay, this is no big deal. Even when we got more and more information, we're now to the point, and we have been for, I don't know, at least 20 years, maybe longer, that we know that it is not a clump of cells. It is formed. You see arms and legs and head. You're talking 15 weeks. We know it has its own unique DNA. We know the child can feel pain. We know that they fight the abortionist, right? There's been ultrasound that has shown a baby fighting or trying to get away. We know the brutality of it and how abortion is done. They're ripping apart body parts, squashing heads. Um, the left doesn't say, oh boy, okay, more information, no more truth is coming out, there's evidence, okay, maybe we need to marginalize. The left says, you know what, not only are we going to continue our belief that abortion is good and noble and so on, we're going to say that even after a baby's born, you can kill it. And that's what that's what is happening. We heard the Virginia governor was recorded, was talking about how if a baby survives abortion and is born alive, we decide what to do with it. Barack Obama refused to vote for the Born Alive Act, as did many other Democrats, in Chicago, in Illinois. the left doesn't say, okay, maybe we need to retreat. Maybe the information, the truth, the science has shown us to be wrong. Maybe we at least are okay with banning abortion after, after a heartbeat or something. No,
Not even that.
then not even that. They go, even again, they go to the furthest extent, and that is after a baby's born. Well, where does it stop? I mean, people might say, well, come on, where does it stop? Why not a 2-year-old? And why not a 2-year-old who's has cerebral palsy or something and is in a wheelchair? I mean, the same arguments apply. So we have to fight this issue, and the left is taking over the entire issue of life and family. They are very pro euthanasia. I've had guests on my show talking about that. Canada is way far beyond even the United States, and they all tell me, they say, just be cautious, it's coming, right? They are destroying the family without question. um, we have all this transgender and gay marriage stuff, and like you said at the beginning, we have to stand up to this stuff. This is a fight. We have to stand up, and especially, just as being guys, we got to stand up as men for our families, and and for just our society.
It's just sad to see. It really is sad to see, and I feel like over the last several years, especially recently, is that the beauty was you could see you had to choose a side. Are
Hmm.
you know are you pro life or not? There's no in between, right?
Hmm.
What's sad to me is that most people don't want to engage because it doesn't affect me,
Hmm.
and then you have the politicians that are like, oh, nothing to see here, yet you know where that money's coming from. You absolutely know where that money's come. We see it here in California. We
Yeah.
saw exactly why they have such an influence. And do I do what's right, or am I, as a politician, am I going to be selfish? And I think when it comes to the pro-life movement, there's so many aspects of it, and
Hmm.
we can argue till we're blue in the face that there's a heartbeat, there's pain, there's fingerprints, there's fingers, and forceps and suction and everything that's associated with. You think it's over until you suffer a lifetime of having that regret and thinking that, oh, that's beyond me. But the trauma and anxiety and depression that comes associated with that,
Hmm.
it's sad to see. Yes, we have the gift of confession, but it's become an acceptable practice that completely disgusts me. And I, I think that I think back to when we were in front of Planned Parenthood here in Orange, and seeing seeing my daughter get completely distraught at 15, understanding what was happening in that building every single day,
Hmm.
and then seeing people coming out of that facility with tears in their eyes, emotional, and then you see other people with sarcasm in their face, looking at us like we're the bad people that are out here praying for all the lives that are destroyed here, you know, and I can't help but feel like there has to be a breaking point, because even we're even seeing legislation here that's protecting them, through, for
Hmm.
example, SB 245 here in California is allowing insurance companies to pay full cost of the abortions. They're trying to hide behind, SB 742, allowing, Planned Parenthood to be, for example, a vaccination site where you cannot obstruct or intimidate or picket. So they're just playing those games, which
Hmm.
means our fight against them, we're doing something good. We're deterring people from wanting to do that and choose life and choose other options. There's plenty of other resources and ways to go about that, but we need men to step up.
Yeah, I completely agree. And to end in this portion, at least, maybe on a positive note, I mean, there, as you said, what California is doing in other states, we are doing is a result of the work that's being done by the pro-life movement. There have been a number of heartbeat bills in a number of states. There are even some cities that have actually uh, adopted legislation in a city banning abortion in their city. I've had some really just awesome people on my show, even women who had a baby and rape and kept the baby, and they talked about how
Mm.
in reality the evidence is that the an abortion after a rape is adds to the trauma. It's even worse, and it makes it worse. And so I love that we're not doing the whole exceptions, the exception of rape and incest and things like that, because a life is a life, and the left doesn't back down, right? And then the other thing I'll say, to be on a positive note, is there is so much progress, I believe, being made, that we should be hopeful. I had on a guy who, I just love this guy, man. He's outside of Planned Parenthood in Nashville, Tennessee,
Hmm.
and he is up to, I think now, saving 303 babies, and he's just this guy, and he's just out there, and he's got other people, and this is what he's doing, and he's changing people's lives. And the fact of the matter too is that men are affected by abortions, right? That's sort of the unknown entity in this, is that men are affected when they allow the abortion of their kid. And so, it's not just a female issue, it's a men's issue, it's a life issue.
Yeah, and the point that you had made was that it's a deterioration of the family. It's the attack
Hmm.
on the family, and biblically speaking, we are the provider for the home, the protector of the home, and that comes in many ways.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that we as men, as dads, know everything about uh, abortion and the different statistics and such. What we know is it's wrong. It God doesn't really need to teach much more than the fact that it's a life.
Hmm.
And just to understand the fact that when we look at it as a whole, am I going to have children that grow up in the Catholic faith but swing away from it because they've been fed lies from somewhere else?
Hmm.
And furthermore, knowing that there are supposedly those in our family, in our Catholic family, that just don't get it. They just don't get it. And I think that tears me apart to see people in a position where they overtly say that they're Catholic, but they support choice. It's just
Are
so,
you
so
talking about Joe
disgusting.
Biden, our
I'm
our
talking about
president?
Pelosi.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
right. So
everyone
many,
that
I know.
that dodges the question
Hmm.
and has fed their careers on that,
Yep.
and yet there they are.
Yeah.
And it's very hot downstairs. That's what I'll tell you. It's hot
Hmm.
downstairs, and those are the people that need our mercy.
Yeah.
But it's just so sad. It's sad to see.
Totally agree. I think I think it's such a weak position, especially if you look at some of these, as you kind of mentioned, how it's, these politicians, it's where the money comes from. They're getting money. It just stand up and do what's right. And I think that's what men and women need to do. But I mean, as men, we are typically the protectors, right? Would you stand by and allow your neighbor's kids to be treated terribly? No, of course we'd stand up. We want to be people that are willing to, you know, technically, you're essentially lose our lives in order to do right. And losing your life is figurative and could be literal, right? But you know, can you stand up even in the face of maybe criticism, of being hated, of being put down? There's nothing wrong with, as guys, standing up and fighting for this life.
Yeah, yeah, and there's no greater joy because I think growing up we always thought about people that were considered heroes and saving a life
Hmm.
and such, and I just can't imagine how that would feel to save that many lives through
Hmm.
preventing someone from making a choice that they're truly going to regret, and allowing that life to come and to take shape. It's sad because like even when it comes to the kids, I try to help us as fathers know that sometimes the attacks are going to come very subtly. They're going to try to
Hmm.
desensitize you. They're going to you know allow you to not see things as so bad. But that verse that I pulled, as I was kind of preparing for our meeting today, it's from Matthew 7:15, and it specifically just says, "Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves." And that's just the way I see, unfortunately, those that will take that stance. And you know, uh, like I said before, those are the people that just need our mercy. But when it comes to men, I mean, and you know it, and I know it, we tend to be very, very. I don't want to say secluded, but um, we kind of do a lot of the lone wolfing. We tend to be private. We do our thing. We try to solve things on our own. But you're a big believer in fellowship and brotherhood and the values that are associated with the people that you surround yourself with. Maybe you can share with us, how you go about that.
Yeah, sure. So in a way, it's for me, it's a little bit newer. So I have a men's group, and it's a group of, let's see, six of us, seven of us, that kind of, we get together periodically. And when we do, we pray. We maybe read a particular book, or do something. Last a few months ago, we did something on reading the New Testament and the Old, and then we get together and we talk about it. Um, and I think it's important because what I think is, look, we struggle out there as guys, right? And I think you're right. Guys do tend to be sort of on more quiet in their faith and less vocal. One of the guys who's a good friend who's in my group says that there's always that initial sort of embarrassment, right, as a guy. Um, and I know what he means. That is it cool to say a rosary as a guy? Is it like it's an uncomfortable feeling, I think, sometimes for guys. And I think
Mm.
if we are just out there, we don't have to go stand on a soapbox and preach, but if we're just out there, one of my favorite stories of my one real good friend is that he had really started coming into his faith in the last 8 or 10 years. And a few years ago, he went into our church's chapel. It's open 24 hours, and he decided to go in there. And yeah, he said, it was sort of new to him a little bit, and he was a little bit uncomfortable. He goes in, and one of our other good friends is there. And he was like, I would have never thought he was there. And it was vice versa. The other guy never would have thought. But just the one guy being there was was like, hey, it's all right, this is good, you need to do this. And I think if we just do that, whether it's for other men that might see us at church, might see us as a reader or a Eucharistic minister, or just behaving, just living your life in a good way. But it's also certainly good for our kids, right? Our kids need
Mm.
their fathers, and they need good fathers. We're not perfect. We don't have to liken the same things and all the time, but but having that fellowship is, I love it. I just love these guys. um, and it is really, really important.
And and there is that timidness of how is this going to be perceived. And
Hmm.
for me, I know where that's coming from. We know where that doubt and that fear comes from.
Hmm.
And if you let the devil work in you like that, he'll be like, oh, that works, that
Hmm.
works, look, he's not going to adoration. Or
Right.
oh, he's gonna skip this Sunday. And
Right.
I think the whole point is we have our personal relationship with the Lord, and we have to model the behavior. We have to be Christ like.
Hmm.
And yes, we have our flaws, but that's even more reason to ask for forgiveness, and to go to confession, and to try to find ways to be more in a state of grace when we get fired up about some of the things that we deal with. And one of the things, one of the verses that I found that made total sense about brotherhood itself that I was looking at was, behold how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity. And
Hmm.
it's really just the iron sharpens iron mentality, that these are guys that are going to hold you to the values, or are you going to be the hypocrite that we see in the Bible?
Hmm.
And I just don't want my kids to view me that way, and I'm sure it's the same way for you.
Yeah, yeah. So we do as guys, we do the Exodus. It's a cool app that it gives you sort of programs to go along with, and we do it together. There's readings every day. We actually have to communicate with one another. Just even a quick message. We have we have an anchor. It's called an anchor. So me and one guy are an anchor, and we text each other on the app. Um, and part of it is, hey, daily prayer, that kind of thing and stuff. And so, something for me, it's always been a little bit uncomfortable is to, do, prayer in public, other than being at church. And so this has really caused me to say, no, sit out there with a rosary. And it's a good thing if the kids come in and they see you, and those are the types of things that we as guys in our group, we talk about. We talk about our kids, and are we doing right by our kids? Are we the right example? The struggles that we face with our kids, and because we're all outside of that fellowship, we're alone, and you know how it is with family. It's crazy. Yeah, we have our spouse, and of course, and our family, but having that other fellowship with guys is just so important. And men need to, I believe, ultimately step up, because I think there's also a war on men,
Yeah.
right? By our society. They want to diminish men. The whole women's movement is based upon almost, hating men, or men are oppressive and that kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. And, we have to dispel that and be unafraid to take a stance, even if it means we're hated.
Yeah, and it's so interesting how everything that you would do that you would consider like gentleman like can be looked down and frowned upon. And it's just, it
Hmm.
blows my mind how even with the flag, how in the world is it has it become so controversial that something like that,
Hmm.
and how things get so twisted. It's
Yeah.
just it just eats at me, and that's what really has led me to just lean on my faith. God, what are you trying to tell me through all these challenges? And for the kids, it's just modeling what we think makes what God wants us to teach them. We're
Hmm.
entrusted with these children, and when they grow up and they decide to have their own families and make choices in life, it better be based on the values and characteristics that they've learned, by knowing the saints, by their
Hmm.
prayer life. Because and I know, Jerry, today's society is nothing like we grew up in. And number two, if you're not prepared, you're gonna see how ugly life can get. And
Hmm.
I just don't like getting blindsided. So when the storms of life come, that's just another opportunity for us to lean on our faith, and don't think that God abandons you just because of the rough waters that we're going through. Just like it says in the scripture. I mean, Jerry, maybe for you, as we start to close up, any final thoughts or advice that you have for maybe some of the Catholic dads that might be a little bit more on the lukewarm side, and maybe some encouragement we can give them to really understand how important our faith is, and how we choose to live life.
Yeah. So, I would say just, live by example. And just like my friend who went into the chapel and saw another guy, you might be the guy walking in, and you might be the guy already sitting there to someone else. And so, if you do what's comfortable to you, no one's saying, again, you have to go out there and wear a scapular and 3 scapulars around your neck, and all that stuff. If it's not you, that's not you. It's fine. But maybe take some steps towards, whether it's going to church, whether it's saying a rosary, whether it's, getting involved in a club at your church, and finding those other guys. Because I will tell you, they are out there. And many of them are not only out there, they're searching for you. right? They're searching for that guy who they go, oh, that's great. Some of these guys I've known for years,
Mm.
and they've coached football,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, I would have never thought this guy was
Right.
going to
Right.
church every day, and it's so great to see, and it's inspiring and it's helpful. So just take those baby steps, I think, and live by example. And that's probably the best advice I can give, and find those guys, and it'll be helpful to you.
Brothers and sisters, host of the Fides podcast, Mr. Jerry Cirino Jr. Thank you for being on the show. We always pray for our guests. We always pray for our listeners. And I'm going to make sure that all of you guys have a chance to check out some of Jerry's episodes. And we'll have a lot of the information on in our show notes and such. But just remember, surround yourself with the right people and know God's got your back. Take advantage of the sacraments. Make sure you recognize the importance of you as a father and as a dad and as a husband, and knowing that it's your job to act like a man of God. And that's one of our messages that Jerry and I have for you guys. So um, all I could ask you guys is to share this episode with family, friends. Find a group of men that are gonna help you be accountable and to be better spiritually and closer to the Lord. And just remember, there are guys out here that love you, that'll pray for you. But until then, this podcast episode is ended. Go now in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thanks
Thanks be
be
to
to
God.
God.